Hey,
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. How you doing?
yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. I see you have the fresh air out.
Yep. It's a nice day, so I'm away from the house and I'm outside, kind of remote, so pretty quiet. So I just figured, all right, it'll be nice. We'll do this from the outdoors for a change.
Good. Very good. This is very cool. Now, just one thing about this on-air live stream, we're doing a little test too. And yep, I'm just making sure there's about a 45-second delay of what you're seeing and what's on either LinkedIn or YouTube. So just FYI if you start connecting. But I see it on there, so I think we're good. Cool.
Awesome.
So I think this week we wanted to catch up
Yep.
on some follow up from I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago because last week I had a conflict that I was traveling and then Brendan had a conflict. So this week just wanted to go over kind of some of those new Claude Code features. They released that new Fable model.
Yes. Yes.
And this is just a name for what they named the model. There's a set, like a branch of models, and this is just one of those models that has unique security provisions around it, so people don't misuse it because it's really good and stuff.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to use it? I think I sent one task and it did good. I didn't really have an official measuring criteria, so that was kind of my mistake. But I was just kind of excited to try it and give it a hard task, and it worked through it pretty nice. But it's double the usage of Opus 4.8.
Yeah. And so the other thing is there's a disclaimer after June 22nd. You can't use it unless you pay for usage at a usage rate. Like usually, you pay for a plan and you get certain usage windows and a time allotted. This will switch to token-based usage, so it's 100% going to cost money for every time. You can't just use it like the current ones. Use it up, it stops you. Come back later. No, this one is if you want to use it, you've got to pay to play 100%.
Yep.
And so I'm guessing all their models will probably start shifting to that. Like, hey, you can live with the current models and use the usage windows per week that we give you, but now if you want the more advanced ones, you're going to have to explicitly pay money on there. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I also saw an interesting article where this somebody at a company where they didn't have you can set a limit on the APIs, to stop at a certain standpoint with tokens. Well, apparently they forgot to put a limit on there, and he blew through. I think it was $500 million worth of tokenization, something like crazy. Like I
Wow.
don't even know how you would, get past that in a month of usage, but apparently this company did by accident because they forgot to
Wow.
turn it, put a ceiling on it. Anyway, this is very similar to how when they started migrating to cloud,
Yep.
whatever 10, 15, 20 years ago, everybody started jumping on it, and then they realized, oh, there's the cost of hosting all your stuff in the cloud. It's just not like magic.
Yeah.
And then they weren't expecting those costs. So I think we're kind of in the same realm now. Everybody's kind of starting to use the AI, and now they have to start budgeting for the actual, usage for it. And then you're going to probably have new benchmarks later that says, oh, you've used this much over a month, and over that month that could have equated to these salary levels. So how much is it really saving money, or are you paying 300K a year for the equivalent of another body? you know
Right.
that kind of stuff is what I'm going to be looking for next. um,
Yep. Yep.
but I did test it, and I have a few different scenarios here. So let me just get my windows here, and I'm going to kick off a few little things because with Fable, they actually released some new functionality also. Um,
Okay.
So let me just save your spot. And I'm
It's
gonna
funny why you're pulling that up, Robert. You mentioned the cloud infrastructure. So when I was at DirecTV, they were spinning up QA instances for their billing environment, and they had the settings to use no more than 10% of the available server capacity. And this is a really large environment that they're spinning up. So they're doing all kinds of testing. The next thing they knew, they had like 500 or 1,000 of these instances, and it was a massive cost. And then it was basically, they all kind of got into a table and they're like, well, why are we only using 10% of the available server capacity? Let's bump that up to 80%, because it does testing just fine, and then it drastically reduced the cost. But it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because that was a real problem when the first cloud servers and cloud platforms were rolled out.
Yeah. So I think everybody's kind of getting used to the new thing. And so, well, here's also a good example, right, of how things are unexpectedly can change. So for a lot of rural areas that didn't have electricity, somebody probably had a candle in their house or gas-powered lighting, etc. These are like areas that don't have electricity, and then they're basically living against the daylight. Go to bed. It's 7 o'clock. The sun is down. Everyone goes to sleep, and there's a certain essentially usage of it. Then you implement electricity, and they're like, oh, now I can essentially save money because now I don't have to buy candles and all this other stuff. And then what happens counterintuitively is because you can add electricity, then people actually added more lighting than they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And now everything is running, and it actually was like costing more, than just sitting around waiting for the candle,
Yep.
etc. So it was just it's very funny, that even with the LED lighting, we went from incandescent to LEDs, which was a cost savings. But what happens? You put lighting everywhere. There's flood lighting outside with the timers, with motion detecting now. And it's like, even with mine, I've replaced everything, and I'm like, man, we're still chewing up a lot of electricity with all these lights. Well, half the time, everybody just essentially leaves all the lights on 24/7, and there's no no indication to lower it. So it's I think the AI is going to be very similar. Is everyone's going to use it more for unanticipated usage, just like I'm going to kind of show you actually today. So let me share my screen. And I'll do the entire screen, and let me just make sure my Teams is do not disturb, because we have some of our partners we work with will just ping me at any odd time. All right, cool. Got to select the screen. All right. Minimize this so you don't get a view. All right, cool. So what you see here is my current usage. My usage just reset about 40 minutes ago, and I really kind of lightly touched it. So I'm at 2% for today's usage, because I had to close out some things and do some stuff like that. So what I wanted to do is just kind of show you a few things. So Fable 5 release, but they also have this thing called it's a Workstream, or and then you can, or dynamic workflow, sorry. And then you can essentially get a workflow, which is it spins up multiple agents at the same time. And you can have up to 1,000 agents depending on your computer's hardware. So just keep in mind that every agent uses a fraction of your CPU usage to do its work. So my laptop is pretty decent, because if you look here, let me just bring up Task Manager right here. If I go to the performance, there we go. My processor is Got to scroll to the right a little. Doesn't, there we go. It has 16 cores on this laptop. It's like a beefier laptop. It is still about 2 years old. And then I have 64 gigs of RAM, which right now I'm hovering at 37 gigs. So with that, the other day, and I'm going to do another run. This was before the Fable. I was running 70 agents simultaneously to do some research. Again, the reoccurring theme. My son is going to be a senior next year, so right now I'm hot to trot to look at every single possible scholarship that is available in the United States, and then I'm basically going through a process of filtering that down to figure out which ones he can apply to. So in this screenshot, I was running basically 70 agents going through every one of them based off the criteria up here of looking at graphics design through the US, looking at Michigan, Detroit, Wayne County, and then local kind of businesses and stuff like that. So now to continue this, because it went through a sweep, I want to kind of continue going because the other thing that annoyingly happened is this Windows update decides to reboot your computer in the middle of the night without your permission. And I basically lost like 3 or 4 terminal windows that I had running, and it was like I had to basically go into the group policy and turn it off. So now this is my terminal window that I'm using. And let me just minimize some of these other stupid windows that are in the background. So right here, we can set the model by going in Claude Code /model. Right here, it confirms I'm using Fable 5. Oh, okay, cool. Then you can do effort. And right now I'm using Ultra Code, which basically, see this, the crazy, I can go to max and it's like this rainbow color, which is what they had before Fable. Then they released Fable and they said, oh, by the way, with workflows, you have Ultra Code. So now I'm going to push it over here to even use more effort to get this stuff in there. So I turn right and then it has this sweet graphic right here. So I'm going to press enter and say, yes, I want the cool purple, indigo, whatever color this is on here. And now this is basically my scholarship search and implementation kind of window. And then over here, I have basically a continuation, where I'm doing a verification of some scholarships that were in there to kind of continue the work. And then I also have another step for it, which is basically once you do the searches, I need to have the search results using this particular template, because I have a separate utility that I'm using that's going to basically start applying to the scholarships on there. So I want it to be in certain formats. So let me make sure that I'm writing this the correct way. Yes. Okay. And I'm going to change this just a little. Leverage workflows to run verification sweep on the old list. However, this format, blah, 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 blah. And we'll do that. Ask questions in case I forgot something. My window crashed the other. There we go. All right, so we'll do that. Well, and I'm going to tell it that my stuff kind of crashed on there. So now the thing with Fable is you should, most of the time, give it an instruction like this, and it just kind of does its thing and does its testing and goes through the points. Now, when I kick this off, we'll go over some other stuff on here. There we go. See the CTX at the bottom? This essentially means my context window. I did it like a little thing on here where I created like a little bar that shows my context window. So I made sure I cleared it out previously. Press enter. And now, while it's going to start working, I'm going to go back over here to my wonderful usage. Let's see, just basically, I'm going to put this down just a little bit so we see the current session at the bottom. And we'll leave that hovering, and I'm going to get this little restream doohickey out of my way. All right, so now as it's going through the tokens, Fable is supposed to kind of go off and do things, and then you basically have it do something and come back in the morning, and it'll chew through and work like hours, through something. Now, the one thing is, and this is what I kind of noticed with the other application work I've been doing, it's still going to be asking for stuff. It needs logins, it needs API tokens, it needs connections. So sometimes when you're building these apps and it needs connections to other services, what I found Fable is still not going to be able to do is go to a website, log in, grab something, take it back, put it back in here, develop against it. All those extra steps is basically where it's stuck. Which is probably another video where we're going to start testing out the Herms, and then because that one's supposed to actually take those additional steps and do stuff. That would be good, because that would be actual set it and forget it. This is almost like hitting warp drive when you have to go across a galaxy at warp speed, and you know where your destination is. You can do that. All right, so let's see. Right here, it's already. Where should the list go? We're going to keep it all in the same location. So I'm going to go and press down over here. Yep, because I want to talk about the graphics design and keep all this. Oh, the other thing I noticed, Brennan, it still has a hard time keeping stuff, together. Like, at least it asked me this time, instead of arbitrarily creating some random folder on here. And maybe I need to do another thing is if I do Shift Tab, I can switch to auto mode. So I'm going to press enter here. How should I update the previous graphics ESV? Conversion is new file. Yeah, always new files. Come on. Okay, the old school list is generic: law firm, essay contest, financial letters. Almost none are designs. Which survivor should I make? Oh, okay. Well, think we need to do something about this. Hold up. Because why would it have law firms in here? So wait a second. Why would graphics design scholarships be with law firms? Unless, it's a law firm that actually has a legit reason. I don't know.
Maybe they're switching to infographics as opposed to, the boring 20-point or 20-page letters.
Maybe. I don't know. All right. For scholarships with no essay, a portfolio video or portfolio only video, form only applications, what goes in the prompt? Word count, describe the requirement. Prompt equals what actually submitted. I'm not sure what he's even talking about here. Okay, yeah, I know what it says. Actually say no written essay required. Cool. Let it do that. Oh, it looks like auto mode is on, so we're good. This is when it auto mode basically means it'll keep taking steps on its own to do things. So now we got that. I answered those. So now let's check on something. I did tell it back at the top to use essentially leverage workflows. So let me see. Now what I can do while it's doing this stuff is, once it starts spinning up agents, which it should, we'll check. I should be able to go to workflows right here. And then there's none in this session. Okay, so maybe it's not worth using that. Let's see if it spins it up or what it's doing. And I'll say be sure to leverage.
No, so as you're typing this in, Robert, so
Yeah.
one thing for anybody that's watching this, we're kind of going over Fable, which is the new release from Claude, which is it's super powerful, and it does multitasking very well. To enable that, they've also put in this thing called workflows, and the workflows is what we just kind of mentioned before, where it can spin up to 1,000 agents. I think there's a limit though at 18 that can go at the same time. It's either 18. They might be increasing that, but the first release was 18, but it can spin up 1,000 agents, and it basically has 18 at any given time running all at once. And then as part of that that release, what Robert is going to looks like he was going to be pulling up or maybe pulling up here is it'll tell you all the agents that are firing off and what they're doing and how many tokens that they're burning through. So it's really powerful if you want kind of a multi-agent task force. So something like what Robert is kind of going over here, where you're researching a lot of different scholarships and a lot of different data points. It is pretty valuable to have multiple agents spin up at the same time, pull different sources, put them into a coordination agent that would then basically summarize and look through all the data to kind of see what you're trying to build or what your purpose is. So that's a little bit from a very high level of what the workflow does. It does eat a lot of tokens, and it does take a lot of kind of a lot of effort. Depending on what you ask it to do. So, anytime you start using workflow, you really want to give it kind of the rules. Some of the things that you can do is you can tell for basic tasks, spin up agents that are on Haiku so that they don't burn a lot of tokens. And then for the tasks that are going to require a little bit more intelligence, you can have them run on Opus or Fable if you wanted to. But you have that flexibility to say, okay, easy tasks, spin up Haiku agents, harder tasks, spin up other models. So that is one thing. You start playing with it. You definitely want to put that in because you don't want to be running web lookup on Fable because that's going to cost a lot of tokens, and you don't need Fable to do a web lookup.
All right, and then while it's doing this, I'm going to kick off another window because I was doing some testing on my scholarship page. Have it do its thing. All right, so we're letting it go through. Let me see if I had another window. I don't think this other one's going to count because this is onboarding type questions for Dylan for college prep. Well, while it's doing this, let me show you some other stuff that it's been creating. Here we go. So I created this agent team, and I call it the college operating system. So over here, that one basically built a connector into ClickUp and then created a timeline of all the kind of steps for my son to start doing in order to prepare him for college. In fact, things that are already out there, like making sure that you submit your taxes so they hit the system in case you go to the FAFSA or things like that. Over here, we got some things that are coming up due on the 23rd of June, which is running like a SAT diagnostic. And again, I didn't write any of this. This was all pumped in with Claude. So if I click on one of these, I even had it basically, put instructions in here of what to do. Like, what are we talking about with SAT, ACT diagnostic? It's basically tells you what it is and the step-by-step process to register, get a SAT, do all that kind of stuff. If the college that you're going to apply for takes it, if not, then, skip this stuff like that. So I have all that kind of built out.
So
Now, if you
Robert,
remember a couple videos ago, this might have been 2 months ago, where I had those 10 or 15 free webinars that I went to, and then I basically used all that data to formulate a, um, a tax strategy for the college. This is basically how this was all cooked up. The stage I'm at right now with it is essentially, this onboarding process right here, where now I'm at the stage where I have to ask Dylan a bunch of questions to help kind of line them up correctly. So now it looks like dynamic workflow, verify the stale school. Yeah, okay. So maybe it's working now. Workflows. Yep, here it is.
oh yeah,
So it's not
it's spinning
quite
up.
yet, but it's getting ready to, it looks like.
Yep.
Let me just move this a little bit like this. So right now it's, oh, it looks like the workflow died instantly on harness. Payload didn't make it into the script. Quick fix, embed the data. So it looks like it's trying. Let me press escape out of this menu to see what it's doing. I think it's going to keep retrying on its own and figuring it out. So it's definitely going through and getting prepped to do the kind of the super push here. I'm at 3%. It still hasn't chewed up a whole lot if you look at the bottom of the screen of my usage, but we'll see what it does.
Yeah, it hasn't really started like any heavy lifting yet, it looks like.
Yeah, it's getting prepped for it. Now it's relaunching. Now it's saying it's going to check to see if the agents were spun up this time before I report back. And so now it's doing its check. I can you can't hear this, but I can hear my computer's fan starting to go.
Wow.
All right, now what is it saying? The workflow is now running properly. The first launch hit a hardness bug and blah, blah, blah. I embedded the data directly for the stream. Type workflows to watch the live. Okay, I guess it's ready. So 154 agents.
So that's a lot of agents.
And here we go.
Yep, they're spinning up.
The first chunk of 1 out of 95, and they're starting to go through. So now I should expect this at the bottom over here, my usage, to start to kick off quite a bit. Now, what I can do is go through. This is the first batch is running 5 out of the 95 to verify the school listings. If I press down, this is like its next check to make sure which one of those are fake. So I have part of the work they do is to filter out the scams and stuff. And then once it goes through there, then it's going to basically convert all those into the proper format and stuff. So, and now I can also, if I press left and right and see how it turns blue, I can basically go through each one of these, how the little check boxes are going, how it's basically going through each one of those. I don't know if I press enter, if it does anything on each one of these. Maybe it will show me the how each one of the agents is working, maybe. Oh yeah, here it is. So now this is this particular agent looking for a $2,000 Sallie Mae scholarship, and it has the prompt, the activity, and then the verdict. It rejected it. The entry is the Sallie Mae, no essay scholarship suits, and an active but sweepstakes lead gen drawing rather than actual scholarship. So it's already filtering out, basically lead gen related items.
Nice.
I did also create a separate email for the purpose of all scholarship and college related things to protect our main emails from this kind of stuff that might happen.
Right. So Robert, just so everybody kind of gets an idea, where did you get all of these scholarships? How is it curating this list? Because this looks very comprehensive, but it also looks intimidating for somebody that, hey, maybe wants to try to build something like this, but maybe on a lesser model. Like, let's just go a more simple approach. Somebody wants to, look scrub some scholarships and just look for general fit with their son or daughter, what would be some simplified tasks that they could kind of do using workflow or Fable?
Well, I mean, to get to this level, you'd have to be past the intimidation point because, to go through the process of installing Claude Code, like
Yep.
that big step, then basically configuring Claude Code to look at the specific model by doing /model, and then using the high effort, all those big steps. There's a little bit of prep work, even getting Claude Code ready. Then the next part is the searching. So then I created a search prompt, and I did this outside of Claude because I didn't want to kind of tie up the usage and stuff like that. So then I just basically used Gemini to say, I need a scholarship search that targets this type of scholarship, and it's for graphics design for these zip code areas, and this whole comprehensive stuff. Then I fed it back into Claude Code, and then I had a conversation with Claude to say, I need you to, search for the scholarships. I don't want any lead gen or scams or things that I have to pay to play, this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then I need you to research them, get this type of data, how much they are, link, the parameters of what kind of information it's looking for and how it validates it. And then finally I tell it to put it into a format that's a .csv. So then later I can essentially import it into my other system, which I think is over here, which is this scholarship website that I'm building here, which I can import them. And then I basically, the new thing for this one is I have formatting right here, which is that new template. I just told it just now to put this into this format. So now I can put it in here, and then from here, this is going to be test data. Now there it is. Okay, then this is like test data right here. Then it's right here where we can start seeing everything and then applying to them and clicking on one of them and getting more information. And this one doesn't have any data for whatever reason, but they usually should have data associated with them. If I go down by this U of M one, well, I guess I better work on this prompt or this one a little bit, because it should tell you all the data here, and then it has a link to go to the actual scholarship and stuff.
Okay.
So
yeah,
right now
nice.
I'm getting the data, and then those are kind of the steps of me going and fetching the data, and it's searching the web, just like any other LLM. It's the same thing.
Yep.
Except this is doing it 95 at the same time. So imagine having 95 ChatGPT windows to do each one of these prompts. This is basically what the Claude system is doing. It's just the agents basically automate that process. Oh, look at this.
Wow.
It went from 3% to 94%.
Wow, that's there you go.
7 minutes now.
Wow.
I mean, I essentially have the max plan. So,
wow, that's and what the other thing too, which is even more crazy, is that Claude right now is doubling the usage until I think July 1st or July 2nd or something like that. I forget what the date is. So you're actually getting double the normal usage as well.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, but again, just to put it in perspective, the old school way would be using a prompt to search for a scholarship, validate that a scholarship result isn't a scam, getting the data for the scholarship so you can download it into, like, let's say Excel. I'm doing CSV. You could put it into an Excel. That way you have a tracker to track them, and then you go and type on the keyboard. That all those steps, that you would do with a ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, with the chat interface, is essentially what this automated with each one of these agents. So it basically went through that whole process. At least it did 63 of them out of the 95 that it has listed here.
It looks like they're averaging about 30,000 tokens each. So,
right. Oh, good. So
maybe
then now
less.
kind of figure out what that upper limit is of the Claude. It's about 2.8 million tokens that
Yeah,
I
2.8 million tokens, and you're about 60% through. Wow.
right. Yeah. Then this looks like this didn't get started. It probably got stuck, is why there's an X now. And then I
Yeah.
pressed that.
Oh,
And
172 agents is what it was spun up.
wow, the totality. Yes. And there it is, 2.2 million tokens in
Yep.
8 minutes.
Wow.
So now it's basically saying, you've hit your session limit. It resets at 6:20. Well, then, all right. Well, I guess I'll see you at 6:20.
Yep.
So I'll say
So,
stop and wait for the limit to reset. And then I'll say set a cron job to restart at 6:40 p.m. ET. Now I'll just leave this window open. If it could even take what my last thing is, it looks like it even rejected my last statement. So I'll just set a reminder on Google to come back and then just say, have at it again. And then
yep.
It'll blow through that in 8 minutes or whatever. But anyway,
So,
that's what we have as far as workflows. Remember, so like think about if you were at an enterprise or where you're working and you needed to do research against competitors. You had a new marketing, campaign going out. You needed to do lead gen. All this kind of stuff could essentially rapidly be done with the dynamic workflows, and then using the Claude system, where you don't have the same limits that I do. You might have a monetary budget to set against it, but you could rapidly, get a lot of data very quickly, and then from there have the AI using other models that are less intense do the work. I probably didn't even need to use Fable on this exercise. I just wanted to see this kind of me drain my usage essentially
yeah.
instantaneously. All right, so that's kind of like the little show and tell I had, Brennan, so we could see how fast I could use things up.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
It is. It's insane. Now, what was that? Let me look. I thought there was an article, and I just got to look for it. I think somebody blew through that huge, massive number, of tokens in one sitting.
I wonder what they were
Company.
doing to blow through that many tokens. I mean, that's massive.
Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay, yeah, this is it. Let me share this. I was right. I thought that was like way too much. How could it? Like, how do you miss that in the invoicing that's coming in? And there's a lot of memes now, about this kind of stuff where it'll show a text message from some spouse that says, "Oh, I see you just spent $15,000 out of the checking account. Are we getting engaged?" And then somebody's like, "No, that was my Claude invoice."
Jeez.
So yeah, here it is. Company blew 500 million on Claude.
In 1 month. Wow. Did you know? Oh, wow.
That's probably on paper, so they'll probably say, "Oh, this was a mistake. We can't pay this,"
Yeah.
blah, 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 on there. But I mean, how many tokens would that have been? I almost feel like asking,
Well, I was gonna
Gemini.
ask Claude, how much does 2.2 million tokens that you just burned through? How much would that cost on the API?
Yeah, let me ask.
So one thing, one thing that I've gotten in the habit of doing, and anybody starting to put in more of these higher volume tasks, is after I get to a point where the output is what I'm looking for, and then I'll run a test run. I usually immediately go, okay, how much does this cost to do this? And then that gives me a good perspective. Even though we're on the max plans, there are times and there are going to be applications where I'll switch these things to an API model. And if you're switching that to an API model, and you know that, okay, every time you run this one thing, it's going to cost 4 cents, or it's going to cost 25 cents. That's
Right.
good to know, so that you don't end up with a $500 million bill.
Yeah. This is a guesstimate. It could be anywhere from $28 to $140.
Oh
Whether
wow.
these
Okay.
if it's for input or output,
Right.
so it look these are probably I was doing input because I didn't get a response back,
Yep.
it ran out, so once it starts reading its data, if it would have given me 2.8 million tokens worth of data back, then it would have been effectively 140 bucks. So now this is interesting because it's like, oh, so my window's worth $28, and then add
Yeah.
630 and I can reset that. But let me just ask this another thing. So I'm going to go to Gemini. Then over here, let me see, how many tokens would this have been to spend 500 million based off this article? I put this in there. Hopefully it doesn't gripe and say, well, I can't read Yahoo, because you remember they essentially stripped that ability
Yeah.
in the beginning. It drives me crazy that they did that, because I often use this to summarize an article so I don't have to kind of read all their fluff in it.
Yep.
All right, so let's let it do this. But I think, budgeting, setting guardrails, like you just said, doing estimates for stuff. The other stuff I kind of noticed over here, is, and I saved one of these articles, which we should probably implement ourselves, is there's these skills, and one of the skills, which I heard about separately, is actually called Caveman. And so
Yeah.
what the Caveman skill has is, instead of the AI or Claude, like over here, giving me this huge, like everything it's doing and all this stuff taking up tokens, it basically gives you one-liners. So if you have it do something, instead of telling you everything it did, it will be like, done.
Yeah.
And then you tell it to do
Updated.
something, and it says yes, and then you get the output, so it uses up less tokens and stuff. So that's called Caveman, because it's so, it's like a grunt, grunting on there. So this guy Charlie posted a bunch of this stuff on here, so I'm gonna go and look for them. There's a bunch of skills on here, and we talked about skills previously.
Yeah, and some of the in our agents that we have, I didn't deploy Caveman because I think there's some reasons why we kind of want it, or not want Caveman, but there are other ones that I found that are in there on kind of how they structure the self-learning loop, and then also how they think about developing and kind of going through the thinking process. So there's some good frameworks out there. So like if you're in development, Karpathy, I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
You could just Google it. There's a GitHub repository that has a set of skills that basically takes it through a structured design step and a structured development step, so that it doesn't kind of go off the rails. Because anytime you start coding and start doing some development work, especially if that's not your skill set, the agents and AI tend to kind of go into deep dark holes if you let them. So those types of frameworks kind of help you ground where the thinking goes, and helps you get better results faster.
That's really cool. Looking at the estimates on the output, at the very least, they would have paid for 20 trillion tokens if they use Opus 4.6.
Wow.
At the very most, if they were trying to be frugal and using Haku for everything on input, just feeding it data would have been 500 trillion tokens. Trillions.
Like, what are they doing? I mean, what I see is a one of the downsides with AI, and I think this goes right back to your analogy, Robert, with the light bulb. The candles were hard. You couldn't have 100 candles in your house. But it's really easy to put 100 light bulbs in your house, whether you need them or not.
Right.
And I think AI, kind of, it's the same thing. Before AI made stuff, those general tasks really easy. If you wanted a in-depth PowerPoint presentation, it might take your team anywhere from a day to a week, depending on what kind of presentation they're putting together. Now, if you have the right the right skills put in place and the right research put in place, you could have members basically building 100 PowerPoint presentations each. And then those are all just sitting there going into some OneDrive or some, Outlook folder and just piling up, 100 of them, 200 of them, 300 of them, and it's still serving the one thing. You need one PowerPoint presentation for one client, but now you have 300 to go through because you're looking for that perfect one, as opposed to where, before AI, you might have 2 versions, 3 versions. You had your version, right. then the boss had their version, and then the VP had their version, and then you all worked within those 3 versions. But now, now the boss has 100 of them, the VP has 100 of them, and then every team member has 100 of them.
Well, right. You could essentially dynamically create the PowerPoint presentation based off that unique client, and they're all customized to that unique client and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that could be piling up. Like right here, I was asking the Gemini, well, what could you possibly spend that many tokens on, to get a bill like that? And I'm assuming, again, this is 1 month of invoicing, because how the heck could you miss that over 6 months?
Right.
Of, $100 million, even over 5 months. So anyway, this makes a lot of sense. Unbounded agentic loop. So you put an AI agent, and it has no guardrails, and it's just working on its own. So you know what, Brendan, I almost feel like, just like Ford basically established a 40-hour work week, we're probably going to have to establish the same kind of boundaries on the AI agents to say, oh, sorry, it's 6 p.m. It's time to go back to sleep.
Yep.
24/7 chewing up all this, this tokenization. Or maybe it's cheaper, at some point, all these models will be just as good, like the open source ones. So then a lot of companies would probably implement their own LLMs and then leverage token agentic features using their own internal, and then shift the cost basis from going out to basically hosting fees, where they're, it's basically going to bring their own data centers back up with more power, so it'll be a balancing act, almost the same checkpoint of do I do cloud versus on-prem? I think we're going to see that coming back. I bet you 100% it was all right here. They made a bunch of agents and didn't put any guardrails, and the stuff just kept running like crazy. Probably not doing a whole lot, because sometimes they'll try something, and it doesn't work, and then it'll say, oh, I'll try later, and then it just keeps going.
I hope they got some good information out of it. That's all I got to say. So,
I know. So good stuff. All right. Well, that was my show and tell. Now that was my 8 minutes of fame of using all my usage up. Oh, that was hilarious.
I think we'll close here with a practical kind of tip, and something that we're seeing in the market. And I've had some clients call and kind of say this exact thing. So they are saying, we're using Claude, we're liking it, we're seeing a lot of stuff, but it's just making more work, and it's not really automating the things that I need automated. And so then I kind of said, well, you're using it wrong. That's it. And I think that's a fundamental shift that's going to be very hard for everybody, because the first impulse is to do more of the stuff that didn't really matter in the first place. So I think the market is doing that. They're going in and they're building more, and AI is very easy to kind of take you into going even further. So like, one person I was working with, they're building a product, and they just wanted a simple landing page to test the market to see if there is a product market fit. And next thing I know, 3 days later, oh, look at this. I got a design spec. I got colors, and we'll do a limited edition release. And like, well, wait a second, you don't even have it yet. Like, why does all that matter? Why are you eating up tokens to build all that? Because that doesn't matter. And that's why, and it just made 100 more decisions for you. So that's why you're not getting the results, because, simply you want a landing page to test the product market. So the very next thing is you got to tell it, go, all right, how do I reach an audience so that people can come there to tell me whether this is a product that people want to buy or not? And so I think that's fundamentally a little bit of what's going on. I think that's in larger organizations. They're making more PowerPoints. They're making more, more documents. Yeah. And then they're not getting the results. And well, that's why, because, just because you can before you only made a 20-page PowerPoint, and now you can make a 300-page PowerPoint, and you're still going to say, okay, I still don't trust it. So then it's going to come offline, and that's still going to go to the VP, the director, the manager, 14 people. So you haven't freed up any time.
No, that's you're spot on. It's like the whole thing of everybody waiting for fusion reaction, reactors to come in and basically make free energy. We'll eat all that up. Then it'll be an equation of where do we put all the fusion reactors, because we're running out of space, or the utopian view, because we talked about a little bit of the post-labor economics. Yeah, you can have AI robots that go and build vehicles, fix roads, put houses together, and then you'll be like, oh, well, we're set. No, everybody will want 100,000 times more things that they never even thought of. It's like, what are we going to have all these robots do? Yeah, there's 100. Like once a year, there'd probably be a new resurfaced road every year to make sure it's squeaky clean, because now you have unlimited labor. They can do all that kind of stuff. That's you're spot on. It'll just make more things people didn't even think about.
Yeah. So, so as you're deploying AI and you're using AI, especially these tools, there is this progression. There's the single threaded, which is your standard ChatGPT. And then you kind of go through these stages to where you eventually get to agent, and then controlling agents to do collective work for you. A lot of people can't get there, and part of that reason is because they're still trying to put a huge control layer on top of it. They want their exact thing. They try to force it into that exact thing, and then that exact thing, they start to get there, but then then they start adding on the bells and whistles, and they never progress past the one piece. Like, do one thing well, and then you don't have to worry about that thing anymore. And instead, they never get to the checkbox that says, okay, it's doing it well. Instead, they go, oh, it's kind of doing it well, and I'm going to add these 20 things, and now I got to validate those 20 things. And then when they do, they add 20 more things, and that's that's a repeated pattern I see happening with a lot of the clients. And honestly, too, it's also a reason why some of the companies we're helping, they're AI firms. They do AI solutions, and they haven't even figured it out. They're single threaded into kind of what their solution does. But when you look at it from a business operations or a business OS, they don't understand it. And they know if they just understood it, they could do it. They probably have collectively way more intelligence in the AI space from a development perspective than you and I have. but they haven't figured out how to build like a simple business OS. So, you know, it's, you know, as you start to kind of venture into Claude and into these agent teams, you know, just keeping that perspective is going to help you learn a lot more and be ahead of a lot more people.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's good. Good stuff.
And that's what, you know, that's where we help out. We help ground that, that baseline, and help you kind of design things that, that are actually going to help, and try not to put too many features on top of it. So, but yeah, this has been good stuff today.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. Cool. All right. Well, I think we've got about 5 more minutes, so I think that's all we have.
Yeah. And anything specific for next week that we want to share?
Well, yeah, I gotta probably think through. I'll see how far I get with my other little side project and stuff. I could do that, and then probably send a note on it to see if maybe we can have a guest speaker or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also want, you know, maybe I'll look. I want to share some ways to use some of the technologies like Claude Design on how to do personal branding, because it's so important. That'll be part of that ties in with the college thing that you built, Robert. So I'm working on a whole profile for my daughter for field hockey. So I'm kind of playing around with the design specs in that. So that's all just done in Claude Design, which is it's a lot cleaner than just using Claude Code. So maybe we can, if I get it to a point where I'm happy with it, then maybe we can demo that, because it ties straight into the college topic.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, and then cool. All right, looking forward to it. And yeah, we'll chat again, Brendan.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Thanks everybody for joining. We will see you next week.
All right, cool. See you then.